Hello everybody and welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech here with another Ikoria card. It's me, Eric RagingLevine, and today I'm going to be building a deck around Rielle the Everwise. Rielle costs 1, a blue, and a red for a 0/3 legendary human wizard, but Rielle gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard, and whenever you discard one or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. Now, you could just slap a bunch of Wheel of Fortune effects into a deck, and maybe a Lab Maniac and a Thassa's Oracle and the Jace that does the thing where you win, and just go to town. But I've decided to take things in a little bit of a different direction. Let me show you how. We know we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with Rielle, because of course we're going to be discarding a lot of cards. Not from Wheel of Fortune effects, but maybe from some similar effects. So we want to make sure we take advantage of that with some heavy hitters. We've got Niv Mizzet the Firemind and Niv Mizzet Perun, who are here to deal a lot of damage when we draw cards, and the Locust God, who's here to make 1/1 blue and red insect creature tokens with flying when we draw cards, and to enable us to do some discarding. Nezahal is also a heavy hitter, but mostly here to enable discard 3 cards, which is really discard 3, draw 3, which is awesome. We've also got creatures that enable us to discard cards all the time, every time. So we're going to want to discard cards not just on our own turn, but on other people's turns. These cards enable us to discard cards repeatedly. We've got Angie's Ravager, which lets us discard anytime it attacks. Glinthorn Buccaneer, which does pretty much the same, although in a more limited way. Forgotten Creation, which lets us discard and draw at the beginning of our upkeep. And Magus of the Bazaar, which is my favorite because we can activate it on other people's turns. Along with those repeatable effects, we've got some one-shots. Bedlam Reveler, Cavalier of Flame, and Ox of Agonis are all great at letting us fire off our hand for some gain, usually drawing some additional cards, and then with Rielle in play, we draw even more. With all the drawing and discarding we're doing, we need some more creatures that aren't necessarily big heavy hitters to help take advantage of that. Psychosis Crawler, when we draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life, and Surly Badgersaur focusing more on the discarding, but don't underestimate the +1/+1 counters, the treasures, and the fighting. It may seem marginal, but it all adds up to a pretty awesome package. Here's our last creature, and if this didn't forecast the number of spells that were going to be in this deck to help fuel Rielle, I don't know what would. Goblin Electromancer here to provide us an important discount. Alright, let's get into the stuff that makes my Rielle deck list really stand out. We've got a lot of effects, ways to make her unblockable, because of course, she's going to be huge, and what's better in a blue-red spells deck than killing your opponent with your commander? Weird, right? But let's give it a try. Artful Dodge, Distortion Strike, and Slip Through Space are all very high-tier unblockability-giving effects that I think you're really going to enjoy alongside Rielle. These 3 are maybe not quite as good, but still nice and low cost. Infiltrate just costing 1, Teleportal costing 2, and Veil of Secrecy doing double duty as an instant that doesn't just give unblockability, also protects Rielle, which is pretty cool. And then we've got the more expensive options, but I really wanted to focus on this. I really wanted to focus on dealing commander damage with Rielle, so I figured I'd add some extra effects here, even if they were a little higher cost. Stealth Mission, of course, adding those counters. Open into Wonder, giving us a card draw, and Tygam Strike coming in off the rebound. I know it's not an instant or a sorcery, but I'd be remiss if I didn't include Aqueous Form. 1 mana, so that Rielle can't be blocked. Fantastic. Plus we get the Scries in the bargain. Alright, now that we're investing all of these cards into making Rielle unblockable, let's do some work to protect her from all the terrible spells that might try to kill her. Fierce Guardianship is going to be a huge staple in basically every blue deck in Commander. Keep Safe, doing a great job of both protecting our commander and having a cute owl on it. And I guess drawing a card, but the owl is more important to me. Narset's Reversal is a card I've really warmed up on recently. I think maybe I've been a little behind the curve on it. I think it's fantastic. It's a tempo tool. You just return somebody's spell to your hand that you don't want to happen to you, and you make it happen to somebody else. I like that a lot. We've also got some more traditional counterspells. Dispel, Swan Song, and Negate all coming in to protect Rielle here. And we've got Swift Foot Boots, because if we're trying to cast all these spells on Rielle to make her unblockable, it seems frustrating to give her Shroud. Now we've got a couple of slightly differently angled protective tools for Rielle. Deflecting Swat doesn't really counter a spell so much as it sort of zips it on over to something else to do its dirty work. And Forbid is fantastic at protecting Rielle. You discard 2 cards, you draw 2 new ones, you counter a spell. As long as people aren't casting 2 spells on you a turn and you have enough mana, you should be doing a great job protecting Rielle with Forbid. It is a little dangerous because you are tearing through your deck, though, and we're not playing any of those alternate win cons because I don't really like those very much. I don't find them as that fun. That's also my problem with the wheels. I don't find them that fun to disrupt everybody's hands that way, disrupt their plans. It's not a fun way for me to play Commander. So if you want to include those, absolutely do, but just know they won't be in my final list here today. Alright, now that we have the kill condition and a way to protect it, let's see about keeping this engine running. We need to be discarding cards and drawing cards and discarding more cards and drawing even more cards. So let's start off with some of the classic draw 2, discard 2 effects. Faithless Looting, Careful Study, and of course, Frantic Search are all going to be fantastic players in this deck. Then we've got some slightly less efficient ones. Cathartic Reunion, Is It Charm, which can choose Draw 2, Discard 2 as one of the modes. And then the not often seen Attunement, but when it is seen, it's never played fairly. After all, why would you want to draw 3 and discard 4 if you weren't getting something else exciting out of the deal? Now we get to the effects that maybe resemble the wheels a little more closely. Tolarian Winds lets us discard our hand and draw that many cards. Dangerous Wager does the same thing, but only lets us draw 2 cards. But with Rielle backing up Dangerous Wager, the wager gets a little more plus EV in our favor here. And of course, Collective Defiance, again, another modal card that lets us make some choices here, but mostly we're going to be discarding our hand and drawing that many cards. Then we've got an effect that kind of straddles the line between these 2 types of effects. Is it a draw X, discard X? Is it a discard your hand effect? I don't know. It is Breakthrough, though. You draw 4, and then you choose X cards in your hand and discard the rest. It is perfectly fine to cast this for 0 with Rielle in play. Just tap a blue, cast this, draw 4 cards, choose nothing, discard the whole hand, and then draw an entirely new one. Basically, you've come up 4 cards for 1 and just 1 mana. This is as long as Rielle is in play, of course. If she's not, well, you're going to be pretty disappointed. Not everything can be a discard and draw effect. Some of these cards really only shine when Rielle is in play. I'm talking about these cards that let us discard our hand effectively to deal some damage. Channeled Force sort of fits into that category. I just put it here because it also deals damage, but it is a discard X, draw X. The other 3 here, Nahiri's Wrath, Fateful Showdown, and Firestorm, are all about discarding cards and then dealing damage based on those cards in some way, whether it's damage to each of various target creatures and or players, whether it's damage to one thing, or whether with Nahiri's Wrath it's damage based on the converted mana cost of the discarded card. So keep that in mind when you play that one. And then we've got some of the, okay, let's be truthful, stranger effects, right? Rights of Refusal looks a lot like Mana Leak because it seems to say 1 and a blue, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. But in order to get a Mana Leak outcome, you need to discard at least 1 card along with Rights of Refusal. So pitch your hand, make something just impossible to pay for, and then draw a bunch of cards with Rielle. Turbulent Dreams is a sorcery, but sort of a similar bent. You play it, you discard a bunch of cards, you bounce a bunch of stuff that you don't want to see right now, and you draw a whole new hand. Of course, we want to have some point removal. I know we're very focused on this plan of making Rielle unblockable and huge and killing people with her, but sometimes you need some point removal, and that's where these 2 cards come in, Reality Shift and Chaos Warp. Both somewhat unpredictable, but both very powerful. Now we've got some sort of weird powerhouse cards that didn't really fit into any of the other categories I had created for non-creature spells. We've got Ominous Seas, which plays on all the card drawing we're doing to create some 8/8 Kraken tokens. Tectonic Reformation, which will give our land cycling and let us do some extra drawing off turn. Underworld Breach, which will help us leverage all the cards in our graveyard in the late game. And Primal Amulet, which will give us more of those sweet discounts and then transform into a very powerful spell copying land. And where would we be without some mana rocks? Arcane Signet, Izzet Signet, Talisman of Creativity, all here to generate both red and blue mana. Thought Vessel, Mind Stone, and Soul Ring round out the non-creature spells, and they are here to generate colorless mana with Thought Vessel, getting rid of that maximum hand size. I do love to see that. Now let's talk mana base. I've front-loaded the really exciting lands in this mana base. We've got Gaia Reach Sanitarium, which lets everybody loot. Of course, we loot way better than everybody else because we draw, we discard, and then we draw again. Cephalid Coliseum, which draw 3, discard 3, draw 3 sounds pretty good now, doesn't it? And Desolate Lighthouse, which again, we're better at looting than everyone else here. Of course, all this looting that I've mentioned is predicated upon the idea that it's the first time you've discarded that turn, so please keep that in mind as you play Rielle. We've got some other utility lands here. Reliquary Tower, another way to fight the max hand size. Rogue's Passage, sneaking Rielle through for commander damage. And Mystic Sanctuary, picking up an instant or sorcery card for reuse. This deck would be absolutely nowhere without a full complement of cycling lands. And don't worry, I've got these 4 just to start. There are more on the next slide. Forgotten Cave, Lonely Sandbar, Smoldering Crater, and Remote Isle, some of the classic red and blue cyclers. And then we have the Desert of the Fervent and Desert of the Mindful here from Hour of Devastation, alongside Blasted Landscape and Ash Barrens. You are still discarding Ash Barrens, so you will still get to draw a card along with getting a basic land. Some things, at least in my deck building, are a little bit inescapable. One of those things is that I tend to put a couple of ways to deal with pesky non-basic lands into pretty much every deck list. Ghost Quarter and Strip Mine, of course, making the list here. We also need some dual lands, Steam Vents, Is It Boilerworks, Is It Guildgate, and Command Tower, alongside fellow Commander stalwarts Shivan Reef, Sulphur Falls, Temple of Epiphany, and Fiery Islet. Round things out with 7 of each applicable basics, and you've got a Rielle deck. Alrighty, folks, that is it for my Rielle the Everwise deck tech. If you'd like to check out the whole list in one place, head to bit.ly/RagingLevine Rielle. Remember that URL is case sensitive, so you'll need to type it in just like you see it on your screen here. And please, don't forget, Rielle restricts her sweet card draw clause. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. So don't think you can go cycling multiple lands at the end of somebody's turn and draw up a storm. The first one, you'll get an extra card, but for the rest of those cycles, you'll be putting your pants on 1 leg at a time, just like everybody else at the table. Or not. I don't know what you do with your pants. It's not important. Just hit the good buttons and forget I said anything about pants. It doesn't matter. I don't care. See you next time.